I am re-upping Councilmember Berkeley Allen to continue to serve on the Greenway and Open Space Commission. And I am selecting Councilmember Zulfat Sawara to serve on the Metropolitan Housing Trust Fund Commission. Councilmember Sledge had served on the Housing Trust Fund Commission before that. I think he decided to take a break. I can't see him because Councilmember Glover is standing in front of him. But we do appreciate Councilmember Sledge's commitment and his service on that. And Councilmember Sawara, we hope that you do the same type of excellent job. All right. And thank you, Councilmember Allen, for serving. The last thing I've got is, as you know, we are having an executive committee meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock in committee room 1. The two things that we have told you were on the committee. One is to talk generally about what the executive committee wants to achieve over this next coming year. The second is, after a diligent search, I will be submitting for your consideration Ms. Margaret Darby to be the new director of the Metropolitan Council. I have sent the email out. Ms. Darby will obviously be at the meeting tomorrow. She was here before. There will be times in the next couple months to certainly say something very, very nice about the lady sitting to my right. Hannah Zeitlin has done an amazing job in that interim role, for which we're very appreciative. So anyway, again, I will tell you the executive committee will meet tomorrow to review the recommendation of Ms. Darby, and then the full vote coming out of the executive committee will be taken at the next meeting of the Metropolitan Council. Ms. Zeitlin has the role of, she may have been in the acting position, but I believe she was actually the first female to sit in that chair. If Ms. Darby is selected, she will be the first permanent female director of this body. So just know that. All right, so we are now ready to proceed to elections and confirmations. I'm going to call on Councilmember Vercher. I think you have a number of them coming forward. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. You came pretty fast.
Sorry. That's okay. Take your time. So we are on elections and confirmations.
Yep, I'm there.
Okay.
We have the Agriculture Extension Board appointment of Mr. Mac Wilson for a term expiring August 1st, 2024. The committee recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. We have the Board of Equalization appointment of Mr. Carnell Scruggs for a term expiring April 1st, 2022. We recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. The appointments for the Greenways and Open Space for Ms. Jacqueline McCoy and Ms. Kate Stevenson, that was deferred.
All right, so we will automatically defer those two to the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Examiners Appeals Board appointment of Mr. Weston Aller for a term expiring September 21st, 2025. We approve that, 9-4-0 against. For Nashville Education, Community, and Arts Television appointment, Dana Shoring for a term expiring May 5th, 2023. We recommend an approval, 9-4-0 against. For Property Standards and Appeals Board appointment of Mr. Roger Ligon Sr. for a term expiring August 6th, 2024. We have recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. Property Standards Appeals Board appointment for Ms. Karen Roach for a term expiring July 29th. We recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. Property Standards and Appeals Board appointment of Ms. Lynn Wilkinson for a term expiring August 6, 2024. We recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. Public Administrator appointment of Ms. Michelle Poss for a term expiring December 31st, 2023. We recommend approval, 9-4-0 against. Public Trustee appointment of Mr. William Haynes for a term expiring December 31st, 2023. We recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. Work Release Commission appointment of Mr. Larry Cohen and also Ms. Eileen White for a term expiring October 19th, 2025. Recommended approval, 9-4-0 against. And also Work Release Commission appointment of Dr. John Witherspoon for a term expiring October 19, 2025. We recommended approval, 9-4-0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Vercher. Two questions. It looks like, make sure I've got this right. On the Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Examiners Appeals Board, Mr. Terry Atwood, was that deferred?
Deferred by rule.
Okay, deferred. Okay. And then Mr. Mark Brown for NECAT.
Deferred also.
Okay, so that's deferred one meeting. And then for Mr. Joe Hobbs for Property Standards and Appeals Board.
Deferred as well.
Okay. And then if you're following along on your agenda, there is an election to fill the one vacancy. The Procurement Standards Board will take that up after we take care of the rest of the business. So Councilmember Vercher, hang with me. Let me make sure I've got this right. Tonight, and then I'll need a motion from you after. The ones we're voting on tonight are the appointment of Mr. Mac Wilson for the Agricultural Extension Board, Mr. Cornell Scruggs for the Board of Equalization, Mr. Weston Eiler for the Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Examiners Appeals Board, Dana Schroering for the Nashville Education, Community, and Arts Television, Mr. Roger Ligon Sr. for the Property Standards and Appeals Board, Ms. Karen Roach also for the Property Standards and Appeals Board, Ms. Lynn Wilkinson also for the Property Standards and Appeals Board, Ms. Michelle Poss as our Public Administrator, Mr. William Haynes as our Public Trustee, Mr. Larry Cohen for the Work Release Commission, Ms. Eileen White for the Work Release Commission, and Dr. John Witherspoon for the Work Release Commission. Have I got that right?
That's correct, Vice Mayor.
Okay, before I take a motion, I'm going to Councilmember Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. You indicated that Roger Ligon Sr. for Procurement Standards Board, but it's Roger Ligon Jr. for Procurement Standards Board.
Okay.
And Roger Ligon Sr. is for the Property Standards and Appeals, but which I think that one may have been deferred.
Okay, so we've got a unique situation tonight. Councilmember Hurt has recognized it. We're getting ready to vote on the Procurement Standards Board. Roger Ligon Jr. is being nominated for the Procurement Standards Board. I may have said this wrong because obviously we have two of them. Mr. Roger Ligon Sr. Has been approved by the Rules Committee for the Property Standards and Appeals Board. Okay? Got that right? This is a unique situation where we have.
Yeah, well, the family believes in public service.
Is there a Roger Ligon third? Because we probably have some open positions we can get them on. All right. So everybody clear on that? Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember Vercher, I need a motion on all those that the Rules Committee approved tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move for approval.
Councilmember Vercher has moved for approval. Councilmember Hurt seconds. Any discussion on any of those of the confirmations? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. Okay, so let me make sure I've got everybody here. If you will stand, if you are here and I call your name, Mr. Mac Wilson for the Agricultural Extension Board. There's Mr. Wilson. Mr. Cornell Scruggs for the Board of Equalization. There's Mr. Scruggs. I've got Mr. Weston Eiler for the Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Examiners Appeals Board. I've got Dana Schroering for NECAT. There's Ms. Schroering. I have got Mr. Roger Ligon Sr. for the Property Standards and Appeals Board. Ms. Karen Roach also for the same board. Ms. Roach, are you still here? There you are. Ms. Lynn Wilkinson is here for the Property Standards and Appeals Board. Ms. Michelle Poss as our Public Administrator. Mr. William Haynes as our Public Trustee. Mr. Larry Cohen for the Work Release Commission. Ms. Eileen White for the Work Release Commission. And Dr. John Witherspoon for the Work Release Commission. Congratulations, you all have been selected. We appreciate your willingness to serve the city. You all are welcome to stay, or you can sneak out right now if you'd like. All right, just going back, I think we had 5 that are deferred automatically to the next meeting. Jacqueline Quarles McCoy for the Greenways and Open Space Commission, Kate Stevenson also for the Greenways Commission, Mr. Terry Atwood for the Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Examiners Appeals Board, Mark Brown for NECAT, and Joe Hobbs for the Property Standards and Appeals Board. Okay. So we are now back to the Procurement Standards Board. All right, so this is an election to fill one vacancy for a term expiring October 19th, 2024. We had two nominations. Brady Excorn Morris, nominated by Councilmember Bradford, and Roger Ligon Jr., nominated by Councilmember Sepulveda. Okay, those are the two nominations. Again, Brady Excorn Morris, nominated by Councilmember Bradford. Roger Ligon Jr., nominated by Councilmember Sepulveda. This is to fill one vacancy for a term expiring October 19th, 2024. It is my understanding we're going to have to vote on this, so it's just a simple majority. And we have ballots that we are going to have to pass out. And we are ready to pass the ballots out so that we can select one person out of the two. While we're passing out the ballots, Councilmember Vercher, did both these candidates come before the Rules Committee? I just need to get that on the record.
They did.
And both were qualified?
They did.
Thank you very much. Okay. that it? Have we got all the ballots coming in? Madam Clerk, you tell me when you're ready. Okay, so the clerk is going to go through and just confirm the vote. Madam Clerk, proceed ahead.
Councilman Mendez, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Hurt, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Allen, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Glover, Mr. Morris. Councilmember Suara, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Hall, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Toombs, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Gamble, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Swope, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Parker, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Withers, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Benedict, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Van Rees, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Hancock, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Young, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Hager, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Bradford, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Roden, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Syracuse, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Welsh, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Sledge, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Cash, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember O'Connell, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Roberts, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Hauser, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Druffel, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Murphy, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Pulley, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Johnston, Mr. Etzkorn Morris. Councilmember Nash, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Vercher, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Porterfield, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Sepulveda, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Rutherford, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Stiles, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Lee, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Henderson, Mr. Ligon. Councilmember Rosenberg, Mr. Ligon.
All right, tabulation is Mr. Morris received 9 votes and Mr. Ligon received 29 votes. Mr. Ligon is elected to the Procurement Standards Board. Mr. Ligon, if you would stand up. And Mr. Morris, are you here? Mr. Morris, thank you for agreeing to run.
Sorry. I need to check with IT. Sorry. I can.
All right, so it's a big night for the Ligon family, so just letting you know. All right. We are now on the public comment period. This is when individuals from the public have signed up in advance to speak to the council. Each individual will have 2 minutes in which to speak. We only had one person sign up tonight. That's Miss Abby Snyder of District 2. Miss Snyder, are you here? Miss Snyder, if you would, please come up to the microphone in the back. Welcome. Again, Ms. Snyder is from District 2, Councilmember Toombs's district. Ms. Snyder, you are recognized for 2 minutes of discussion.
All right. My name is Abby Schneider, and I'm here on behalf of the Tennessee Environmental Council. Thank you very much for your time. I'm here to discuss our campaign on recycling contamination. So Tennessee is 47th out of all the states across the country when it comes to recycling participation, and I know that Tennessee and Nashville can do better. Our contamination rate last year was 46%. This year is 28%, so substantially better, but I also know that Nashville can do better. We'd like to see our contamination rate go down and our recycling participation go up. Recycling is vital to the long-term health of Tennessee. If you agree and would like to lead by example, we invite you to participate so we can showcase your leadership to your constituents. Metro Public Works, Metro Water Services has done a great job fighting contamination through their zero waste plan, through their Waste Wizard app, and their webinars, but we want to supplement that program with our campaign. The rules change, and some people are unaware, as we've seen through our campaign. It's very easy to participate. You just take a couple photos of your recycling cart contents or the contents you would take to a recycling center. Email them to me at abby@techtn.org or sign up with the QR code on your handout. My email is also on that handout. And if you're also in this room and don't have a handout, there's also a handout on the table outside. When we do these recycle cart, we tell you what can and cannot be recycled, including styrofoam cups, plastic bags, and obscure plastic. But we tell you places where you can recycle it when it can't go in your cart. So lastly, I want to say, aside from educating on recycling, we educate on composting, tree day, planting trees, and pollinator gardens. So we want to do our best to help Nashville be a sustainable city, and we hope you can participate in this campaign to also help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Ms. Snyder, someone told me that you're actually from District 9, not District 2. Okay.
I live in District 9. Our office is in District 2.
All right. So council members sometimes fight over the fact that if I get that wrong. So I'm just letting
They
you know.
can both have me.
Okay. All right. We are now ready for resolutions on public hearing. This is the way this works. We only have one up tonight. So I will call up the resolution, refer to the sponsor, who in this case is Councilmember Johnston. Unless the sponsor moves to defer the public hearing, sponsor will call for a public hearing, then ask for a show of hands of those who are here in favor of the resolution, show of hands of those who are here in opposition to the resolution. If anyone in favor of the measure wishes to speak, I'll ask you to come forward. Find the microphone in the back, introduce yourself, give us your address, and you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. Then do it on the other side for anybody who wishes to speak in opposition. After that process, I close the public hearing. I'll refer back to the sponsor. So we are ready for the first measure, the only one, RS 2021-1185 by Councilmember Johnston. This is a resolution exempting the Nashville Zoo at Grassmere, located at 3777 Nolensville Pike, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
Thank you. Do I need committee reports first?
You have one. It's Government Operations. Government Operations, Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
Government Operations voted 8 in favor, 0 against. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Now, Councilmember Johnston.
I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Okay, to clear the public hearing open, can I see a show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure? All right, I've got a couple of hands. A show of anyone in opposition to this measure. Did anybody bring anybody from the zoo? Any animals that wanted to do this? Seeing none. All right. Anybody in favor wish to speak? Sounds good. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd move approval.
So Councilmember Johnston has moved approval of RS 2021-1185, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. What happened? Did you hit your button? Oh, okay. All right, now you showed up over here. Councilmember Saguaro, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's just, I was just trying, if the sponsor can just explain, this is the zoo, and this is for kids and family. I was just trying to understand what the beer permit at the zoo does, or where exactly in the zoo, just.
All right, so did you hear the question, Councilmember Johnston? You're recognized.
So this is a minimum distance requirement because of the close proximity to Croft Middle School. But the zoo would like to start selling beer and margaritas for moms and dads so that they can have a little fun too while their kiddos check out the animals. So I've received zero negative feedback from this. Everybody seems to be very on board and excited about it. And there's so many events now that they do, that they sell alcohol that it's just not.
Councilmember Saguaro? Anything?
Thank you.
That's what you needed?
Yeah.
All right, now you've got some hands. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wonder if the sponsor has ever seen an Indian bear drunk, because it is not pretty.
Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized for an answer on that question.
I have never seen that, but I've seen some scary stuff in this room.
Okay. That may be the best comment of the night. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
I will not try to top that. But I know that we made an adjustment to the distance requirement that related to distance to the actual openings. Is this within 100 feet of the entrance to Croft School, or do they just back up to each other?
They just back up to each other, and there is a 40-yard buffer, or 40-acre buffer, I'm
Between
sorry.
them.
So
Okay.
we're good.
Great, thank you.
So again, I would move approval.
I'm checking to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Anybody else wishing to speak? All right, we're on the resolution. This is for approval, RS 2021-1185. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Resolution passes. Thank you, Councilmember Johnston. All right, we are now on the consent resolutions and resolutions. This is on page 4 of your agenda. We have a consent calendar resolution. Let me go through those, and then you can tell me if I need to bump anything off. Items on the consent agenda include item number 3, RS 2021-1186, 1187, 1189, 1190, 1192, 1193, 1194, 1195, and 1196. Anything need to be bumped off the calendar? Councilmember Saguaro?
1190, please.
Okay, 1190 is bumped off the calendar, off the consent calendar. Okay, anything else need to be bumped off? All right, so let me go through the items on the consent calendar. Let me read the captions. We're on RS 2021-1186 by Councilmember Allen, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement related to the South Nashville Central Business Improvement District by and between the Metropolitan Government and the Industrial Development Board of the Metropolitan Government. Item number 4, RS 2021-1187 by Councilmember O'Connell, Allen, and Young. Resolution approving a license agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the State of Tennessee relating to the use of certain space beneath the Broadway Bridge spanning the Gulch. RS 2021-1189 by Councilmembers Evans and Lee. Resolution approving a contract by and between the State of Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance and the Metro Nashville Fire Department for the provision of annual fire and building safety inspection services for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten through 12th grade schools. Next item is RS 2021-1192 by Councilmember Allen. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County's property damage claim against Hunter Marine Transport, Inc. and Heinz Furlong Line, Inc. in the amount of $285,000. That said amount is to be paid to the general fund. RS 2021-1193 by Councilmember Allen. Resolution authorizing the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of Andrew Kim against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $56,723. RS 2021-1194 by Withers and Young, a resolution to amend ordinance number BL 2025-38 to authorize the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon retained public utility easement rights for property located at 405 South 4th Street, formerly alley number 264, and formerly alley number 305. RS 2021-1195 by Councilmember Bradford, a resolution honoring the life and service of BNA K9 Santa. RS 2021-1196 by Councilmember Murphy and O'Connell, resolution commemorating the 200th anniversary of Vine Street Christian Church. Anything needs to come off the consent calendar before we take committee reports? All right. This is resolutions and consent. The committee agenda reports. I've got Councilmember Allen, Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance considered RS 2021-1186 and recommended that for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against. RS 2021-1187, approval, 11 in favor, 0 against. RS 2021-1192, recommended approval. I'm recommending approval, 11 in favor, 0 against. And RS 2021-1193, recommended approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Lee, Education.
Education recommended, 8-4-0 against.
All right, that's on 1189.
That is on 1189.
All right. I think that's the only one you've got. Thank you.
Yes, sir, it is.
Councilmember
Thank you.
Withers, you've got one.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee considered RS 2021-1194 and recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
Okay. Public Health and Safety, I believe that, is it Councilmember Benedict? Who's got it? Councilmember Porterfield has got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. RS 2021-1189. We voted for approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's right. Councilmember Virtual, Rules and Confirmation, you had 2.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. RS 2021-1195 and 1196, we recommended approval, 9-4-0 against.
Okay. And Councilmember Young, you've got the last 2.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Transportation Infrastructure Committee recommended RS 2021-1187 and 1194, 10 in favor, 0 against, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, so you've heard the motion to approve the consent agenda, properly seconded. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, thank you. All right, so let's go back to items that were not on the consent agenda. We're on the first one, item number 2, RS 2021-1166 by Councilmember O'Connell, Parker, and others. Resolution accepting a donation from the Congress Group in the amount of $2.5 million as a contribution to the Barnes Housing Trust Fund and approving a donation from the Congress Group in the amount of $500,000 to a to-be-formed nonprofit entity for the benefit of Wharf Park. Councilmember O'Connell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request committee reports, please.
All right, Public Facilities, Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Facilities recommended approval, 7-4, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Back to you, Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move approval of the brief comment.
All right, so there's a motion to approve, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. Just to remark on that particular committee report, there was some good discussion there about receipt of money from entities outside of Metro and maybe looking at a process. So I think the committee is going to continue to work on that, which I think is good. I also did just want to acknowledge this is something I think we'd all like to see more of. A developer proposes a project and makes a voluntary contribution. In this case, we're looking to secure money for affordable housing, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, will be right in the area of the development. to keep more of a mixed income potential in that part of downtown. And the other is for green space also in the area in a prospective friends group. So appreciate the mayor's office collaboration on this particular project that came into the downtown code, and certainly appreciate the generosity of the Congress group in making these donations, and encourage colleagues to support and renew my motion.
All right, thank you, council member. So Councilmember O'Connell has moved for passage of RS 2021-1166. Can properly seconded. Discussion, Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm in support of the resolution, anything affordable housing. I just have a few questions. In looking at it, I wanted to clarify, is it $3 million in all with 2,500 as the donation, 2.5 million as a donation and 500 for the nonprofit, or is the 500 coming out of the 2.5?
Mr. Jameson, you want this one?
It is $3 million total.
Okay. The other question that I have is that the donor is suggesting that the 500 be put aside for it to be named a non-for-profit. My question is, are there any other donor imposed restrictions, or is the 2.5 million unrestricted?
The donor asked that it be given to a Friends of group for Wharf Park. We don't have Wharf Park quite online yet, much less the Friends of group. So that's why it's through the to be named entity. No other conditions beyond that. They will be making the payment in installments in equitable proportions, the 2.5 and the 3 separate installments in that ratio, if I'm making sense.
You do. And so the 2.5 is we can do whatever we want. The last question is that I did see that it's tied to the receipt of rent on the development. So is it contingent on receiving rent? If they did not receive enough rent, would we not get the money?
Right. Their letter states that they would start making the payments the minute that the developments are actually generating income for them to actually make the payments from. So yes, it is contingent upon them actually generating rent from their tenants.
Okay. So it may be less, but it's still a good start. I'm not discounting it. I just wanted to get those clarifications. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Virtue.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I need to be marked as abstaining.
Okay. So Councilmember Virtue will be marked as abstaining on this one. Okay, any other discussion on RS 2021-1166? Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Again, properly seconded on RS 2021-1166. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So I believe I have Mr. Glover, Mr. Swope, Mr. Hall. So 3 noes and 1 abstention. Oh, and Councilmember Hurd abstained as well. Okay. Anybody else? 3 noes, 2 abstentions? All right, so the resolution passes with those 3 noes marked and 2 abstentions. All right, thank you. Okay, we're on RS 2021-1188 by Councilmembers Roberts, Parker, Allen, and Welsh. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 5800 Medina Drive, known as Richland Hills. Councilmember Roberts, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
I've got affordable housing. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Affordable housing considered the substitute, voted 7-4-0 against, and the bill as substituted 7-4-0 against.
All right, and Councilmember Allen, you've got budget and finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved the bill as substituted, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Roberts, back to you.
And I'd like to move the substitute, please, which is basically just a housekeeping. It's changing it from Medina Drive to Medina Avenue.
Oh, okay. All right, so RS 2021-1188, Councilmember Roberts has explained the substitute and moved the substitute on that bill, properly seconded. She's explained the substitute. Any questions on the substitute? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the substitute, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute's adopted. Councilmember Roberts, you're on your bill now as substituted.
I'd like to move for approval, please.
All right, so Councilmember Roberts has moved for approval of RS 2021-1188 as substituted, properly seconded. Discussion on the resolution as substituted. Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution as substituted say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, thank you. We're on RS 2021-1190 by Councilmember Allen and Evans, a resolution approving an application for a firearms technical assistance project pilot site initiative grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to the Metropolitan Government through the Office of Family Safety to increase compliance with Tennessee firearms dispossession laws. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, and I've got a Public Health and Safety. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Health and Safety recommended approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstaining.
Okay, back to you, Councilmember Allen.
Move approval.
So Councilmember Allen has moved RS 2021-1190 for passage, properly seconded. Discussion on the resolution. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm in support of the resolution. I wanted to point out that women are victims of gun violence, and according to some of the documents submitted, the risk of death from firearms from a perpetrator increases when the firearm is in the house. So this is a great thing, but I pull it out to be able to request for members of the Women Caucus to consider signing on as supporters or any other person that wish to sign on to the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Suara. All right, any other discussion on this? All right, seeing none, we are on RS 2021-1190 for passage. It was moved and properly seconded. No other discussion. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of 1190 for passage, say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution passes. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. We're on RS 2021-1191 by Councilmembers Gamble, Taylor, and others. A resolution recognizing the North Nashville Board of Participatory Budgeting Steering Committee and process. Councilmember Gamble, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Budget and Finance, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Gamble, back to you.
I've moved for one meeting deferral.
Okay, so Councilmember Gamble has moved for a one meeting deferral, properly seconded. Any discussion on the one meeting deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor of the one meeting deferral say aye. Opposed, no. This resolution is deferred one meeting. Okay, I believe that gets us through all resolutions. We do have a late filed resolution. It is in your packet of amendments. This is a resolution in support of Nashville women diagnosed with breast cancer and of breast cancer awareness in the month of October and throughout the year. Sponsors are Councilmember Henderson and Councilmember Young. Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I apologize for having this late filed, but we did want to go ahead and get it passed this evening so that we can bring the community's awareness to breast cancer and the importance of mammography and screening. And 1 in 8 women will be faced with a breast cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. So we will do a presentation at next meeting, and I would just ask your support for passage this evening. And as well, if we could have all those voting in the affirmative to sign on, please.
All right, so let's do a couple of things. First, I need to ask the Rules Committee, did it come before Rules Committee? Councilmember Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It did, and there was no objection.
All right, thank you. Now, Councilmember Henderson, in order to get it for us, you have to suspend the rules.
Yes, I would move to suspend the rules, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Henderson has moved to suspend the rules. Any objection to suspension of the rules so we can get this matter taken care of tonight? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Now you're on your resolution.
I would like to move approval, please, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Henderson has moved for approval of the resolution to pass tonight, properly seconded. Now, as we were trying to figure out to make sure we got all this stuff done, do you want everybody who's voting for it to be signed on as a sponsor?
Yes, please,
okay.
sir.
Without objection, we will do that. We are ready to vote. Oh, Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
I'd just like to thank Councilmembers Henderson and Councilmember Young for bringing this forward. And thank you, Councilmember Henderson, for your bravery. And I want everyone to, go get your mammogram this month. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Hancock. Okay, again, ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution passes. Everybody who voted in favor will be listed as a sponsor. Okay, that takes us through, that gets us through the resolutions. We are now ready for bills on introduction and first reading. Does anything need to be bumped off of introduction and first reading? Seeing none, if nothing needs to be bumped off, we'll take them all at the same time. Is there a motion to adopt all bills on introduction? Councilmember Glover has moved. That's a proper second. We are voting on all bills on introduction, first reading at one time. All those in favor of passage of bills on introduction, first reading, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bills on introduction, first reading are all passed. We did have one late filed ordinance. It's also in your packet of amendments. It is an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing sanitary sewer main, manholes, and a portion of easement rights for property located at 405 South 4th Street, formerly alley number 305, also known as the Shelby House Apartments. Councilmember Withers, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm going to need to request the suspension of the rules to introduce this. Should we get a committee report first?
Yeah, Councilmember Vercher, did it come before the Rules Committee?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It did, and there was no objection.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Withers, you will need to suspend the rules to get this one.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. I apologize for bringing this one late. This is an easement question related to Shelby House Apartments. It's an affordable housing project that we've been working on for a while. It's come through the Barnes Committee and other metro agencies. In fact, we have another piece of legislation on another easement abandonment that's on tonight's agenda. This is one additional easement that was discovered very, very, very late in the process of abandonments, and because of the time sensitivity of the affordable housing financing, we do need to go ahead and get this one on first reading tonight so that it can proceed. I believe your packet also contains the mandatory referral approval from Metro Water for this one, but a request to suspend the rules and approve on first.
All right, so Councilmember Withers has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter before us tonight, so we can go ahead and get it passed on first reading. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing no objection, the rules are suspended. You're on your bill on first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval.
All right, so Councilmember Withers has moved approval to get on first reading, properly seconded. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill on first reading say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill passes on first reading. Thank you, Councilmember Withers. It is now 7:29. We are on bills on second reading. All right.
How about that?
Don't clap too fast. All right. Yeah. We have a second reading consent calendar. Let me go through that. We are on second reading ordinances on the consent. Item number 27, BL 2021-924 is on consent. That's item 27. 925 on consent. 926 on consent. 927 on consent. 928 on consent, and 959, got a little ahead of myself, is on consent. Anything on there that needs to be bumped off of the consent calendar? Seeing none, here we go. Item number 27, BL 2021-924, Allen Toombs and others, an ordinance authorizing the granting of permanent and temporary construction easements to Piedmont Natural Gas Company on certain property owned by the Metropolitan Government. BL 2021-925 by Council Members Toombs, Murphy, and Young, an ordinance to amend the GIS system street and alley centerline layer for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by abandoning an unnamed right-of-way and easement off Old Matthews Road. BL 2021-926 by Council Member Young, ordinance approving a cooperative research and development agreement between the Metropolitan Government acting bound through the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewerage Services, the Department of Homeland Security, and IntelliSense Systems, Inc. for the testing and evaluation of flood sensors. BL 2021-927, Roten, Murphy, and Young, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to negotiate and accept permanent easement for the Surrey Road Stormwater Improvement Project for 8 properties located on Surrey Road. BL 2021-928, Toombs, Murphy, and Young, Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing sanitary sewer main, sewer lines, sewer manholes, storm catch basins, and easements, to relocate storm sewer lines, and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sewer manholes, storm catch basins, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 131 Great Circle Road and Cumberland Bend unnumbered. And BL 2021-959 by Hurt and Nash. Ordinance naming the county clerk's office lobby at the Howard Office Building in honor of Mike Taylor, Chief Deputy Clerk of the Davidson County Clerk's Office. Those are the bills on the consent calendar. Anything need to be bumped? Seeing none, we are ready for some committee reports of those measures. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance considered BL 2021-924 and recommended approval, 12 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met. We considered BL 2021-884 and recommended indefinite deferral, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. We considered BL 2021-920 and recommended indefinite deferral, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. We recommended approval of BL 2021-924, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, as well as for 925, 927, 928. All of those were recommended for approval, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Withers. Councilmember Bradford, Public Facilities.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Facilities, BL 2021-959. We voted 8 in favor, none against to approve.
All right, thank you. And to close it all off, Councilmember Young, Transportation Infrastructure.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. BL 2021-924, 925, 927, and 928 were all recommended for approval, 10 in favor, 0 against. And BL 2021-926 was recommended, 11 in favor, 0 against, and I will move approval of the second reading consent agenda.
All right, you've heard the motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second reading consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, we are now back on the beginning of bills on second reading, bills that were not on the consent calendar. BL 2021-866 by Councilmembers Parker, Evans, and others. Ordinance amending Chapter 11.12 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to prohibit passengers in a motor vehicle from consuming or possessing an alcoholic beverage or beer during the operation of the vehicle. Councilmember Parker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Government Operations, Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, we voted 10 in favor, 0 against to defer 9 meetings or to the first meeting in March.
Okay, back to you, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to defer to the first meeting in March with a brief explanation.
All right, so you got a motion to defer to the first meeting in March, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. So there's another bill that we'll be considering on third reading tonight that makes some changes to the open container regulations in Nashville. I want to sort of see how that plays out. I don't want to pass 2 bills that sort of overlap or conflict. So I think that the best thing to do is leave this amendable, leave it on second, and kick it to March of next year. It is beyond 90 days, so it will actually be, it'll have that thing where it gets bumped to the second meeting in March, but I think it's good to keep this sort of as an option if we determine it's needed at that time. So with that, I'll renew my motion to defer to the first meeting in March of 2022.
Okay, you've heard the motion. It's to defer to the first meeting in March. It was properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. This is the deferral motion to the first meeting in March. All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. This measure, BL 2021-866, is deferred to the first meeting in March. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. BL 2021-884 by Councilmembers Murphy and Nash. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville to abandon existing sanitary sewer main, sewer manholes and easements, except new sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for property located at 4005 Utah Avenue. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
We actually have all the committee reports in, since Councilman Withers already read it, and the other committees have already been in. And so
I'm going to indefinitely defer this because I'm still waiting on information from the developer.
All right, so this one, the recommendation is to defer indefinitely, and we did
Yes.
get the committee report before. That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer indefinitely? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. You've heard the council member's motion. Bill 2021-884, defer indefinitely. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is passed. This measure is deferred indefinitely. Okay. We're on BL 2021-913 by Councilmember Hager. Ordinance to amend substitute ordinance number BL 2019-1633 to permit certain individuals with active permits on file with the Department of Codes Administration as of January 1st, 2022 to be eligible for short-term rental property, not owner-occupied permits. Councilmember Hager, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Government Operations, Councilmember Hancock.
Should I speak on the amendment first, Vice Mayor?
You can do either one. It's fine.
Okay, we voted 11 in favor, 0 against of the amendment, and 11 in favor, 0 against of the bill as amended.
All right.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember, back to you. Councilmember Hager.
Move for the amendment to be approved.
All right, so Councilmember Hager is on 2021-913. He has moved for passage of the amendment, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
What the amendment does is allow the people, they have to have a U&O certificate prior to January the 1st in order to file their application for the short-term rental. As such, it puts the burden on them to get their U&O first. Then they can file their application if they've got the U&O. And then if their application and U&O is done, then if the Codes Department goes past January the 1st and they've got all that done, they can still issue the permit.
Okay, so you've heard an explanation of the amendment. Any questions regarding the amendment? Okay, so Councilmember Hager explained the amendment. He has moved the amendment, properly seconded. No discussion. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Councilmember Hager, you are on your bill as amended.
Move bill passage as amended, please.
All right, so Councilmember Hager has moved Bill 2021-913 as amended for passage on second reading, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. Thanks, Councilmember Hager. We're on BL 2021-920 by Councilmember Murphy. This is an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of National Davidson County to abandon existing sanitary sewer mains and easements and to accept new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 3 properties located at 5540 Oakmont Circle and 262 and 264 White Bridge Pike. Councilmember Murphy, you are recognized.
Thank you. Committee reports on this one are also in, and this is, I'm going to move for an indefinite deferral, still waiting for information from the developers.
Councilmember Withers, is that right? That's right. So Councilmember Murphy has moved to defer indefinitely. That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer indefinitely? He gave it to us before, but I double-checked. So Councilmember Withers, the committee report was to defer indefinitely. Councilmember Withers, I'll come to you.
That's correct, and I apologize to everyone. I just read all of my stuff for my committee, but
That's
yeah.
okay. You're just getting ahead of us, but that's fine.
Yes, there was indefinite deferral, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention.
All right, thank you. All right, so the motion is to defer indefinitely. It's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to defer indefinitely say aye. Opposed, no. That bill, BL 2021-920 is deferred indefinitely. We're on BL 2021-921. Councilmember Parker, Benedict, and Porterfield, an ordinance to amend section 6.72.135, 6.72.435, and 6.75.6560 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to remove existing English language requirements. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
I've got Transportation Infrastructure. Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. BL 2021-921 had a proposed amendment. The amendment was added or recommended 11 in favor, 0 against, but the bill as amended was recommended 10 in favor, 1 against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Young. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is it appropriate for me to move Councilmember Allen's amendment or, okay, so I'll move.
You can do it if you're in favor of it, or I can have Councilmember Allen move it.
I'll be happy to move Councilmember Allen's amendment.
All right, so Councilmember Allen has an amendment in the package. And Councilmember Parker has moved it properly, seconded back to either you or Councilmember Allen for an explanation of the amendment.
Thanks. I'm happy to explain it if Councilmember Allen can as well. So I think as drafted, we sort of eliminated the entire line in the so-called Passenger Bill of Rights that included the English-only language. There was some stuff in there that we decided to retain by applying Councilmember Allen's amendment, which is that drivers will be courteous and supportive or something. I'm probably getting it wrong, Councilmember Allen. Courteous and drivers will be courteous and provide a safe trip. So I think, retaining that language is just fine and a good idea. So I'm super happy to vote in favor of this amendment.
All right, so Councilmember Parker has moved Councilmember Allen's amendment. It's been properly moved and properly seconded. We are on Councilmember, just to keep it safe, Councilmember Parker has moved it, but it's Councilmember Allen's amendment. Councilmember Sepulveda on the amendment.
Sorry, Vice Mayor, on the bill as amended.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hauser on the bill or as the amendment?
Thank you.
On the bill? Okay. All right, so we're on the amendment right now. Any discussion, any further discussion on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment's adopted. Councilmember Parker, you're now on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'd like to move approval of the bill just with a brief explanation. So this bill, what it does is it removes some what I think are dated requirements in the code for our licensed transportation drivers, and that specifically being a requirement that they speak and understand English. I discussed this with Transportation Licensing Commission staff. They do already in their licensing process, have ways of ensuring that folks can communicate and folks can safely do the job. And I think that as a city, we had a very, very extensive conversation about English only shortly after these provisions were put into the code, and it was resoundingly English only was resoundingly rejected by the city, and so I think it's time to remove these from the code, and I would just ask for my colleagues' support tonight in moving this forward.
All right, so Councilmember Parker is moving passage of Bill 2021-921 as amended, properly seconded. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I just want to thank the sponsor for bringing this forward. I missed a deadline again. So if I could have my name added as a sponsor, I would appreciate that. English isn't the official language of the United States, and the English-only bill was defeated here in our county. So I agree with Councilmember Parker. I think it's time.
All right, so Councilmember Sepulveda will be added as a sponsor. Do y'all need her signature on that? We're good, okay. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized.
Yes, I just have a question. We mentioned the word taxi in this, but does it mean all commercial drivers such as would Lyft and Uber be impacted by this, or is that something totally separate?
Councilmember Parker, you want to answer that?
So the app, the gig drivers are not subject to the Transportation Licensing Commission. So these provisions do not affect them today, and they would not affect them after it's modified. Anybody with an app and a car can drive for the gig companies. You don't have to go to the TLC for that.
Okay. Councilmember Hauser, that answer your question? All right. Okay, any other questions, any other issues on this, bill? We are on a second reading. It's Bill 2021-921 as amended. Seeing nobody else in the queue, ready to vote? All in favor of Bill 2021-921 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Guess I got Mr. Glover, Mr. Swope. Anyone else? Okay, so we've got 2 noes recorded. Okay, bill passes on second reading. And I believe that takes care of everything on second reading. Okay. All right, so we are on third reading consent, and there's a lot of them, so hang with me. I'm going to go through them and just mark your calendar. There's more on there's tons on consent, very few not on consent. First one, item number 33, 766. That one pulled, Councilmember? Okay, so 766 is pulled, it's not on consent. 810 on consent. 827 on consent. 844 on consent. 859 on consent. 867 on consent. 868 on consent. 869 on consent. 874 on consent. 879 on consent. Okay, 886 is pulled off of consent. 888 on consent. 890 on consent. 894 on consent. 896, item number 49, on consent. 898 on consent. 899 on consent. 900 on consent. 901 on consent. 902 on consent. 908 on consent. Okay, sorry. 908 is not on consent. It's a disapproved bill. I'm sorry. Nine oh nine on consent. 910 on consent. 914 on consent. 915 on consent. 916 on consent. 917 on consent. 918 on consent, and 919 on consent. Anything I read on there that you have a problem with and need to be bumped off consent? All right, here we go. These are bills on third reading consent. I'm going to read you the captions. First bill up is Bill 2021-810 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS 10 to SP zoning for properties located at 301 Ben Allen Road and Ben Allen Road unnumbered to permit 245 multifamily residential units. Bill 2021-827, Hauser and Rosenberg. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from SP to RS 80, zoning for properties located at 8733 and 8811 Newsom Station Road, approximately 1,700 feet northwest of Coley Davis Road, Zone SP. It's 131.06 acres. Bill 2021-844 by Parker. Ordinance to amend Section 17.40.72 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to require notice by mail to the address of a property in certain cases. Excuse me. Next one up is BL 2021-859 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from OG to MUGA and MUGA-NS zoning for a portion of property located at 612 West Due West Avenue at the northwest corner of West Due West Avenue and South Graycroft Avenue at 16.50 acres. BL 2021-867 by O'Connell, Cash, Evans, and Porterfield. Ordinance to amend Section 12.40.190 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding night parking restrictions, BL 2021-868 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to update review process, update maps, revise typographic errors, and refine the urban design standards within Chapter 17.37 of the Downtown Code. BL 2021-869 by Councilmember O'Connell. An ordinance to amend Title 17 to redefine the urban design standards within Chapter 17.37 Downtown Code relating to permitted facade materials, all of which is described herein. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-874, that's item number 42. Ordinance authorizing the conditional abandonment of a portion of Alley 371, approving the acquisition of an interest in certain real property improvements thereon, comprising a new alley and the granting of an easement above the new alley in connection with the development of a project in Nashville. BL 2021-875 2021-879 by Henderson, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash. Ordinance approving an agreement between the Metropolitan Government acting through the Metro Department of Water and Sewer Services and Piedmont Natural Gas Company for shared use of MWS Access Drive. BL 2021-888 by Councilmember Van Reese. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2021-810. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 301 Ben Allen Road and Ben Allen Road unnumbered. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-890, that's item 46 by Councilmember Syracuse. Ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for BL 2021-857. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 1908 Lebanon Pike. Lebanon Pike unnumbered at the northeast corner of Omohundro Drive and Lebanon Pike, 5.92 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-894 by Councilmember Sledge, an ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying a neighborhood landmark overlay district property located at 2400 10th Avenue South at the southeast corner of Carruthers Avenue and 10th Avenue South, zoned R8 and located within the Waverly Belmont Neighborhood Conservation District. It's 1.1 acres. Permit community education, daycare, and office. BL 2021-896 by Councilmember Toombs, an ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2021-895, proposed specific plan zoning district located at 503 West Trinity Lane, approximately 100 feet east of Old Matthews Road, 4.96 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-898, that's item number 50 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing RS10 and RM15A in zoning for properties located at 509, 511, 513 East Trinity Lane, approximately 270 feet east of Jones Avenue. It's 0.92 acres. BL 2021-899, Councilmember Sledge. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing the rezone from IWD to MUNANS. Zoning for properties located at 212 Hart Street and a portion of property located at 1264 3rd Avenue South, northeast corner of Hart Street and 3rd Avenue South. It's 0.54 acres. BL 2021-900 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing RS 7.5 and MUGA to SP zoning for property located at Dickerson Pike unnumbered, approximately 385 feet west of Dickerson Pike, 7.22 acres. BL 2021-901 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2021-900. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at Dickerson Pike unnumbered, approximately 380 feet west of Dickerson Pike, 7.22 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-902, that's item number 54 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from SP to RS5 zoning for a portion of property located at 1801 Meridian Street, approximately 465 feet east of Meridian Street. It's 0.20 acres. Next item is item number 57, BL 2021-909 by O'Connell and Sledge. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD to RM40ANS zoning for properties located at 1301, 1307, 1309, and 1403 Lebanon Pike and Lebanon Pike unnumbered, approximately 1,850 feet west of Spence Lane. Is 15.56 acres. RS 2021-910 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RS 7.5 to R8 zoning for property located at 2412 Old Matthews Road at northwest corner of Old Matthews Road and Trinity Hills Parkway. It's 0.27 acres. BL 2021-914, that's item number 60, Toombs, Saguaro, Welsh, and Porterfield. Ordinance approving a contract between the Metropolitan Government acting through the Mayor's Office and the United Way of Middle Tennessee to provide financial counseling and other financial education activities to low-income residents in accordance with the Financial Empowerment Center program model. BL 2021-915, Toombs, San Reese, Saguaro, and Porterfield. Ordinance approving an agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Department of Parks and Recreation and Memphis Basketball LLC to allow Parks to participate in a youth basketball program operated by Memphis Basketball LLC. BL 2021-916, O'Connell and Stiles. Ordinance providing the honorary street designation of Billy Sherrill Way for a portion of 18th Avenue South. BL 2021-917 by Councilmember Roberts, Murphy, Nash, and Van Reese. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to negotiate and accept permanent easements for the Neighborly Avenue Stormwater Improvement Project for 6 properties located on Neighborly Avenue. BL 2021-918, Parker, Murphy, and Nash. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing storm sewer easement for 2 properties located at 900 and 902 Dickerson Pike. And BL 2021-919, Rutherford, Murphy, and Nash. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at Burkett Road Unnumbered, also known as Burkett Ridge Phase Number 6. I think that's it. Those are all the bills on the third reading consent calendar. Anything needs to be bumped off before we get committee reports? All right, we only have two committees reporting in. It's Government Operations first. Councilmember Hancock, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We voted 11 in favor, 0 against.
On the two, 868 and 869?
Yes, same vote for both.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, make sure I've got this one right. And Councilmember Withers, you've got the other report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met and considered the items on the consent agenda. We voted 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions on all items, which are, I believe, BL 2021-810, 827, 844, 857, 859, 867, 868, 869, 886, oh, that's not, 888, 890, 894, 896, 898, 899, 900, 901, 902, 909, 910. I believe that's it for planning and zoning, but it was 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions for all of those.
Okay. And Councilmember Withers, can you give me a motion to approve the third reading consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, you've heard the motion to approve properly seconded. Any discussions on the third reading consent agenda? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the third reading consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, so let's go back. We are now on bills on third reading consent. I'm sorry, third reading agenda. While I'm looking for that, I'm looking for this. Okay, so the first one up is BL 2021-766, which has a companion bill, which is BL 2021-886. Councilmember Porterfield, can we take these together? All right, Councilmember Porterfield, all right with that? They're related bills. Okay, so let me read the captions. BL 2021-766 by Councilmember Porterfield. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from AR2A to SP prezoning on property located at 3156 Anderson Road to permit 22 multifamily residential units. And then BL 2021-886 by Councilmember Porterfield, an ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2021-766, proposed specific plan zoning district located at 3156 Anderson Road. The proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember Porterfield, you are on both your bills, 766 and 886. You're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move for a 2-meeting deferral, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Porterfield has moved for a 2-meeting deferral?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on both bills.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we need committee reports. I think Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met and considered both of these items and recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions for both items.
All right, so you got approvals on both, but Councilmember Porterfield has moved deferral for 2 meetings, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, we're deferring both these bills 2 meetings by a motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt 2 meetings on 766 and 886. Okay. We're now on item number 37, BL 2021-857 by Councilmember Syracuse. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RS10 to SP zoning for properties located at 1908 Lebanon Pike and Lebanon Pike unnumbered, the northeast corner of Omahandra Drive and Lebanon Pike, 5.92 acres, permit 40 multifamily residential units and 9 single-family lots. Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
All right, Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met and considered BL 2021-857 and recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Syracuse.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a small amendment I'd like to move.
All right, so Councilmember Syracuse has moved an amendment on 2021-857, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation.
Thank you so much. Very small amendment, does not change anything fundamentally here. There's only one short road as part of this development, and the developer simply wants the option to make it either a public or a private road, depending on where the stormwater detention needs to go. So it just gives them the option, because currently it says that it has to be a public road. But the language of the amendment says that even if they choose to be a private road, it has to obviously be made to Metro standards. So with that, I move approval.
All right, so Councilmember Syracuse has moved approval of his amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. You're on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move as amended.
Okay, so Councilmember Syracuse has moved 2021-857 as amended for passage on third reading, properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of 2021-857 as amended on third reading say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill is adopted as amended. Thank you, Councilmember Syracuse. I think we're on item number 48, BL 2021-895 by Councilmember Toombs. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from RM4 to SP zoning for property located at 503 West Trinity Lane, approximately 100 feet east of Old Matthews Road, 4.96 acres, to permit a mixed-use development. Councilmember Toombs, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and Zoning met and considered BL 2021-895 and recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, with an amendment, I believe. Is that correct? But yeah, we recommended approval of the amendment and the bill as amended.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Withers. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized on your bill.
I'd like to move the amendment.
So Councilmember Toombs has an amendment on BL 2021-895. Motion to approve, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
It's a housekeeping amendment from plan.
Okay, it's just a housekeeping amendment. Replaces the plan. Is that what it does? Okay. All right. Any questions about the housekeeping amendment? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the amendment. Again, properly seconded. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. You adopt BL 2021-895 as amended. Councilmember Toombs.
Move for approval as amended.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs has moved for passage of 2021-895 as amended, properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, we're voting on it. 2021-895 as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Bill passes on third reading. We're on BL 2021-907. Okay, and we can take 908 as well. Both of these are disapproved bills. So we're on 907 and 908 by Councilmember O'Connell and Sledge. 907, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IR to SP zoning for properties located at 121 Madison Street, southeast corner of 2nd Avenue North and Madison Street, 1.42 acres, to permit a self-storage use. BL 2021-908, ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2021-907, proposed specific plan zoning district located at 121 Madison Street, southeast corner of 2nd Avenue North and Madison Street, 1.42 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember O'Connell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to look to Ms. Zeitlin, and I believe there may be a late filed amendment from the council office. Is that correct?
Hold on.
Correct. It's a late filed substitute to
it's a
fix
substitute.
the caption.
Okay, so this is from the council office, and I will need to move to suspend the rules. So I will move to suspend the rules.
All right. Hold on. We're doing a couple of things. Councilmember Sledge, you're no longer on either of the two bills. Okay, just recognizing that for the record. I hated to do it to you, but we just want to get it on the record. But if some other people want to jump on, that's fine. Okay, we'll allow that. All right, so we are on BL 2021-907. Councilmember O'Connell has filed a late substitute on this. Did it go to rules? Councilmember Vercher?
It did.
Councilmember Vercher, we're on Councilmember O'Connell's late substitute for BL 2021-907. Under your coffee mug. 907.
I didn't think you could see all that back here.
I can see a lot of things.
Okay. Yes, there was no objection by the Rules Committee.
Okay. So Councilmember O'Connell is moving to suspend the rules to get the late substitute in front of us. That's his motion. Is there any objection to the suspension of the rules to get this matter before us today? I see one hand. Two hands? Is that a second hand? Okay. So we got two hands to object, so the rules are not suspended. All right, Councilmember O'Connell, I'm back to you.
I might ask the council office to speak to what we do from this point then.
So the issue with this late substitute is that there was a staff error in preparation of the disapproved bill. It does not contain all of the information that it needs to have. I might recommend you defer this bill, the two bills, so that we can
Okay, we'll try again next meeting, I
timely file
guess.
the substitute next time.
I'll move to defer one meeting.
All right, so we're going to defer both bills, 2021-907 and 908, one meeting, both bills. Deferral one meeting, properly seconded. Any objection to the deferral or any questions regarding the deferral? All in favor of the deferral say aye. Opposed, no. Both these bills are deferred one meeting. Okay. All right, so we are now on BL 2021-911. This is item number 59, BL 2021-911, ordinance amending Chapter 2.100 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to the composition of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, amending Title VI of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to the operation and regulation of entertainment transportation vehicles, amending Section 9.20.020 pertaining to vehicle noise, and amending Section 6.75.240, 7.24.040, and 12.54.210 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to the consumption of alcoholic beverages in vehicles. The sponsors O'Connell, Withers, Evans, Allen, and a host of other members of the council. Councilmember O'Connell, you are recognized on your bill.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Again, we've got, there's a potentially complicated series of items here, so I've got a couple of scenarios that may require a suspension of the rules. So let me know how you want to do this. I guess what I would say first is everything we're going to do here has come to rules already. I think the first thing would be to attempt to offer a second substitute, which would require a suspension of the rules. So I don't know if I should describe that now or wait and see if we can get it on the floor.
All right, so just referring to with council, I think that's the right procedure. So what Councilmember O'Connell, we are on BL 2021-911. Councilmember O'Connell has filed a proposed second substitute to BL 2021-911. It's filed timely, but because it is a substitute on third reading, we have to suspend the rules to get to that. So it didn't go before rules. It's just a request to suspend the rules to get the matter before us. So Councilmember O'Connell has moved to suspend the rules so he can ask us to consider the second substitute. Is there objection to suspension of the rules on the second substitute? I see more than two hands, so there is objection, so you can't suspend the rules to get the second substitute before us tonight.
Okay, in which case, we will drop back to the first substitute, and I will request a suspension of the rules for a technical amendment recommended by the council office.
All right, so this is an amendment to the first substitute by Councilmember O'Connell. Let me make sure I've got this. We were trying to make sure I follow this correctly. This amendment was filed timely, but it's, again, because it is an amendment on third reading, you have to move to suspend the rules to get it before. It also did not go to rules, I believe, because
I tried, but I forgot about the timely file.
that's okay. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep everybody with us because this was a little bit complicated. So where we are is we're on BL 2021-911. Councilmember O'Connell timely filed an amendment to substitute. It's a housekeeping amendment. But in order to get it before us tonight, Councilmember O'Connell has to request the suspension of the rules to get this to be considered because it's on third reading. Is there objection to suspension of rules to get the amendment to be considered tonight? Seeing no objection, you are on your amendment.
All right, I guess let's move the amendment to the first substitute.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has explained it's a housekeeping amendment. He has moved the amendment to the substitute, the original substitute of this bill for passage, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just a question to make sure I'm looking at the right one. I see one, there was a late
It's the insurance amendment.
Insurance amendment. Okay, so it's not the one that talks about seating.
That's
Okay,
correct.
got it. I'm good.
All right. Everybody clear? This got a little complicated. Everybody clear? All right, so the motion where we are now is the motion to amend the original substitute by Councilmember O'Connell. It's been properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the original substitute say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Councilmember O'Connell, you are on BL 2021-911 with your original substitute as amended.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move approval with a brief comment.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved approval of BL 2021-911 as substituted originally with an amendment on the original substitute. That's a proper motion, proper second. Back to you for a discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been a long time coming, so I want to thank all of the co-sponsors who jumped into this. It's obvious that this is not just an issue that affects District 19, but has trickled out into parts of the city, particularly anywhere within, some small objects throw of downtown. I also want to thank, there's been a huge coalition of people contributing ideas to this conversation, and really think we need to credit that work. I do want to mention the second substitute I attempted to offer tonight represented a really, what I consider a good faith effort to absorb some industry concerns. In the substitute we are considering now, there are some things that are not really on par with other things we have done with regard to what the Transportation Licensing Commission does, including things like an insurance requirement. To me personally, I think it makes some sense to try to understand industry concerns and respond to those. Those are at least now on the record in the second substitute if we want to come back and consider those. I will also mention this is the first step in a regulatory process for this class of entertainment transportation vehicles. After this, because this has a pretty important and impactful provision related to alcohol, we are waiting on some analysis from Metro Legal to pursue a potential permitting process for bring your own and possibly something equivalent to or akin to a mobile catering permit that could allow point of sale on something that moves, to ensure that there is a level but also regulated landscape for all of these vehicles. In addition to that, there are two kind of key dates here. That alcohol provision in what we are considering tonight would kick in December, so we have some work to do as that date arrives. This pushes most of the regulatory impact out to April of 2022. Is that date is part of a process whereby if we pass this tonight, the Transportation Licensing Commission will need to engage in its own rulemaking process to kind of keep up with the bill in order to have rules in effect by the time the regulatory process plays out. So we still have some work to do. The TLC will have some work to do, excuse me, if this passes. And we will also be looking to the state of Tennessee to make sure we are ready to go with this. But I do think this represents a strong effort that is much needed and overdue for the city to regulate, and I encourage colleagues to support. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just want to thank the sponsor for doing all the work on this. I know it's complicated. We may not get it exactly right, but I have gotten so many emails in support of this that people definitely appreciate us just trying to get our arms around what's going on downtown and ensuring that we're still Nashville, and I think this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I'm a sponsor. I'm voting yes on this, but there's a few thoughts I want to get out. I spend more waking hours in the middle of this than I do in my home, because my office is in the Pinnacle building, literally ground zero for transportainment in Nashville. And even from 12 stories up, once it gets to be 11 a.m. on Thursday, it is constant noise, 12 stories up, and it's difficult. We've already seen Pinnacle Bank leaving the Pinnacle building. The law firm that occupies the top several floors is leaving the Pinnacle building. It's difficult for businesses and individuals who live downtown to deal with it. This was accelerating before COVID, and now that COVID is, now that our tourism is back, it's back to full speed with these things. So regulation is needed. I am, on the downside, a little disappointed at what feels like the opaqueness of the negotiations that have gone so far. Unlike a lot of the big things we've done in recent years, this feels like it's essentially been one or two council people, every lobbyist in town, the major downtown organizations, and the rest of us are sort of along for the ride, where due to public pressure, we have to vote for it, even though there's the known flaws and shortcomings that Councilman O'Connell described. We're putting enormous new responsibility on the TLC, enormous responsibility, many volumes of new regulations they have to come up with. There are some fuzzy, hard to understand terms in this, and the alcohol sales being stopped fully is meant to be, frankly, a punch in the face to the industry to get their attention. And I think in order for us to, what I hope we see for round two is a more widespread conversation. And at least for me personally, I'm going to need to see, and remember, I listened to this all week, especially at the end of the week once tourists come to town. But if we don't come up promptly, all the parties who have hired all the lawyers and all the lobbyists figure out a way to find an avenue to allow alcohol on these vehicles, then we're really more killing an industry than we are regulating. And so I'm hopeful that there is as much energy put into finding a workable, complete structure rather than only a first step as we go forward. And I would like to thank Councilman O'Connell for all his work on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Young, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I have to agree with most, if not everything, that Councilmember Mendez mentioned. I am a co-sponsor of this legislation because I believe that regulations are needed very much. I think that safety is paramount and that we should be working towards that. However, as I have sat here sort of percolating tonight, thinking about this, and especially seeing all the objections to the suspension of the rules for the late filed substitute, which was the seemingly first attempt of actually working with the industry. I'm very disgusted by the CVC's attempt at ramrodding through legislation to essentially kill an industry that, though might not be the most popular one, plays an important role, I think, by providing a safe way for some folks to enjoy our city, and there are a lot of good actors that are ultimately going to get punished because of a few that are, I mean, equally as despicable. If anything, we're going to hurt consumers who are wanting to have a nice, safe way to have some fun in our city by really, number one, throwing out and putting out of business several of these operators, and two, making the other ones having to raise their price quite a bit to comply with an astronomically ridiculous $5 million liability insurance requirement. Make no mistake, this is the CVC's attempt at killing an industry. Even though I'm a co-sponsor, I've decided I will be voting against this tonight, not because I don't believe that we don't need to regulate and really improve the safety of what has been a Wild West, if you will, but because I guess I just can't be a party to such a disgraceful attempt by a taxpayer-funded organization, no less, to put folks out of business. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you, Council Member. Council Member Cash, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I also want to thank Councilmember O'Connell for sponsoring this bill and doing the hard work of engaging all the stakeholders in that broad coalition that he talked about. This is going to impact a small business industry, and I don't take that lightly. But it has gotten out of control. It has been bubbling up for years, and it was kind of quieter during COVID. But something has got to be done here, and there are some consequences to really taking hold of an issue. And alcohol, like to Councilmember Mendez's comment about the alcohol is a punch in the face. The alcohol is central to the problem here. I'll remind folks in committee that we had some Hume Fogg kids that came and testified before us and shared their experiences. Not only were there, classes interrupted with the woo-hoos, things were thrown at them. Things were thrown at children. That kind of thing would not happen without the alcohol involved here. We don't get this kind of frustration from the trolleys that we have tourists take to get around town. I want to add, we had an email earlier today, that kind of implied, or it said, people who oppose this have no interest in the matter. They live in neighborhoods that don't see them. And I want to mention that, I want to point out that the downtown is a neighborhood. It is not just a woohoo tourist destination. We have conventions. We have all kinds of businesses, financial, legal, telecommunications. Downtown is a shared community. It is not just for tourists. And as to the claim that they're not seen in these neighborhoods of the people that are complaining, aside from all those downtown constituents and stakeholders that I mentioned, I know in my district they've been up 12th Avenue and on the side streets off 12th Avenue. They've been on deep into Fairfax Avenue, which has no commercial interest in it whatsoever. On Belmont Boulevard, I got a call Saturday night at 11 o'clock about one loudly going down Belmont Boulevard. So, this is, Councilmember O'Connell has made some hard choices here, and we also have to make some hard choices and really do something about this. And I think he's done it well. I think this is ready for us to vote on. I don't think that one stakeholder downtown is forcing us to do anything. They've given us suggestions about a legitimate concern that they have as stakeholders in this community. And we need to, we've heard from all different kinds of people, and we need to support those people that are asking for our help.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Cash. Councilmember Rosenberg.
Previous question.
So Councilmember Rosenberg has called the previous question. So we are not voting on the bill. We're just voting on whether we want to vote on the bill. So this is just on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We are on the bill. We are voting on Bill 2021-911, which was originally substituted at the last meeting, so the original substitute is on, and it was amended, that original substitute was amended tonight. So we're on BL 2021-911 with the original substitute as amended. This is for passage on third and final reading. There is going to be negative, at least one negative vote as far as I know, so we have to go on the board. So Madam Clerk?
I hope so.
Madam Clerk is ready. Madam Clerk, open the machines. We're voting on BL 2021-911, originally substituted as amended for passage on third and final reading.
All votes are in.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Close the machines, take the vote.
Thirty-three votes in favor, 3 against, no abstentions. Motion
All right,
passes.
bill passes on third reading. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, that's the last bill on the calendar tonight. So I got a motion to adjourn, properly seconded. All in favor of the adjournment, say aye. Opposed, no. We stand adjourned.
And so the council has concluded one of the shortest meetings it's had so far this term, less than 2 hours. Perhaps the most important thing was a dramatic moment at the very end of the council tonight as it passed 33-3, a bill that would basically put a comprehensive makeover of the city's oversight board regulating and licensing tourist vehicles. Change also includes, at least for now, a ban on the possession and consumption of alcoholic beverages while these unenclosed tourist entertainment vehicles are in operation. Support for this change had come from local businesses and from downtown activists, as well as students at Hume Fogg Magnet School, which is located right in the middle of the tourist district. All of them have been expressing concern and complaining about noise and safety issues. There was an effort by Councilman O'Connell tonight. There are some questions about whether this is legal under state law. And there was an effort by Councilman O'Connell to make this a little more palatable to state lawmakers so they wouldn't negate the bill now that it's about to become law, and also to make the owners of these tourist entertainment vehicles a little more amenable to the bill as well. However, a substitute he was going to put in tonight for that was rejected on suspending the rules tonight. He did add a brief housekeeping amendment, as he called it, to change some of the insurance regulations. With that, there was quite a bit of debate, including some people who basically said they had been sponsors. Councilman Zach Young felt like this bill had gotten to be a little bit too extreme. He said this was being led by the Convention and Visitors Bureau here in town as an effort to kill an industry. Councilman Bob Mendez, who's also been a sponsor of the bill, said that he saw this as a punch in the face to try to kill an industry as well. That's what Zach Young said too. However, they had plenty of votes to pass it tonight. It passed 33-3. It now goes to the mayor for his signature. Once it becomes law, then the provisions for the alcohol will go into effect on December 1st, although Councilman O'Connell says he may be offering a second bill soon that would allow alcohol under some sort of permit process of a BYB, bring your own bottle sort of basis, or a catering basis, although that still remains to be seen what those details will be and whether that can be in place or ready to be in place by December 1st. Also, there may be other efforts to bring other bills. There are going to have to be efforts by the new licensing board as it's reconstituted to come up with new rules and regulations, and they appear to be quite extensive, so they've got quite a bit to do. Those go into effect in April, so they do have a little bit more time. There was another bill on the council agenda tonight that was deferred now until March. It would have completely banned alcohol. It was on second reading, but it was deferred, again, as we said, until spring. And the sponsor saying he wants to see how this particular measure works out before he goes any further with that. So you can see this is an effort where the council took action on it tonight, but this issue is probably far from over from being before this body. The council also allocated up to $50 million in special property tax assessments approved and levied on properties in the South Nashville Central Business District. It was under Resolution RS 2020-1186. Funds will go to help for bonds for construction and completion of infrastructure road projects, including the Century Farms Parkway, the William Turner Parkway, and other road improvements in that area of South Nashville. They also approved a 3-year grant from the Federal Department of Justice, which will allow up to $414,000 to be used to better enforce state and local gun laws involving domestic violence. They also approved a bill on third reading that would ban any vehicle a length in excess of 20 feet or a dump truck of more than 54,000 pounds to be parked on any street or alley within Metro from a jurisdiction between sunset to sunrise. This has long been the rule downtown, but now it's being extended to all neighborhoods because there have been so many complaints about that going on. The council is now in recess until the second day of November, the first Tuesday of that month. We'll be here at that time to provide live coverage. Until then, I'm Pat Nolan, and good night from the council chambers. Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council has come to you live from the chambers of the council at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's been a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.